It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. And now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And good morning, and welcome to all of our listeners across the United States of America, particularly those with the John Fredericks Radio Network. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy. You can watch us on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and type in Michael Patrick Leahy Show. You can also reach me on X or Twitter, and my label there is Michael P. Leahy. That's Michael P. Leahy. And in addition, we'll be taking some calls today. Our number is 615-649-8477, 615-649-8477. Well, folks, it's that time of day. It's time for the Morning Rundown, brought to you by the Glock Store, which is located right here in Nashville, Tennessee, glockstore.com. Here's the Morning Rundown for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. It's a long one, folks, so buckle up. Number one, bad news in Arizona. Ruben Gallego has been declared the winner. He leads with, I think, 98.7% of all the votes in. This is a week after the election. They finally got it all. He leads Kari Lake by, I think, 2.3%. And so he's been projected the winner, Ruben Gallego. If his last name was Smith, he would not have won. But he's a communist, basically. And weird thing, Trump won Arizona by about 7 points, I think 6 points. So it's an 8-point differential there. Kari Lake is great, but again, she's lost her second statewide race. Gallego will be the senator. So the Senate breakdown is 53 Republicans, 47 Democrats. Number two, it looks like Chuck Schumer has finally caved to the pressure. David McCormick, who leads with 99.9% of the vote in Pennsylvania. The Republican, David McCormick, leads by about 39,000 votes over the incumbent, Bob Casey. McCormick will be invited to the orientation that begins in Washington, I think, tomorrow. And that had been a big hullabaloo. And unfortunately, Ruben Gallego will also be there. By the way, that guy's beyond awful, but okay. And there are all sorts of questions about, the voting irregularities in Arizona. But nonetheless, this is beyond a recount in Arizona. Kari Lake will not be United States Senator from Arizona. Number three, appointments. So many have gone on. And they've mostly been very good, and they've been announced. Of course, we had Tom Homan as the Border Czar. That guy's great. We've got some Tom Homan clips we're going to play here in a little bit. National Security Advisor, former Green Beret Congressman Mike Waltz, and of course, Elise Stefanik, Ambassador to the UN. All good choices. Lee Zeldin, head of the EPA, a good choice. Kristi Noem as Homeland Security Secretary. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. Marco Rubio reported to be Secretary of State pick. I think it'd be fine. Asterisk. I would have probably gone for Rick Grinnell, but, I didn't get elected. Donald Trump did. So we'll see how that all plays out. Okay, number four. This is kind of a tough story, a personal story. Remember Steve Baker? He is a journalist with The Blaze. He came to my aid and was, when I was under fire, when the judge here in Nashville, the Chancery Court judge, threatened to put me in jail on contempt of court charges that were totally made up and out of thin air for some of the reporting that we'd done. He was here at that hearing, which was, not a hearing at all, but bizarre exercise in, I don't know what, judicial backtracking. And so he came into the studio and talked about it. And, it was very, when you're threatened to be put in jail, that gathers your attention. But Steve Baker, as we speak, I believe, and we'll play the clip on this, he said last night that he intends to plead guilty to charge several misdemeanor charges having to do with actually going into the Capitol and reporting on what was happening on January 6th. Remember back in, March or so it was, where they arrested him in Dallas and they kind of frog marched him around. But he's going to plead guilty. That's a calculated risk on his part. We'll talk about that. I don't. Well, I don't plead guilty if you're not guilty. But it's a stacked deck, and but he's a friend, and we'll Brianna Morello will be joining us later today in this hour to talk about that. Number 5, some more potential picks. Attorney General. It looks like the leading candidate is Mark Paletta. Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, a hedge fund guy, is apparently, there's been a report, unconfirmed, that he may be the guy in Treasury. I got a scoop for you. I talked to Scott yesterday about 4 o'clock because, he's been a guest on our show. And he said, well, he's not doing any public appearances. I said, okay, but look, I want to be the first guy that interviews you after you're named. And he said, yeah, that'd be fine. So if Scott Bessent is, in fact, named as Secretary of Treasury, his first radio interview will be right here on the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. How about that? Okay, so we got that going on. Number 6, the House of Representatives now has been called. It's going to be a Republican majority. When last I saw it was like 219 to 219 to 210 with a number 6 or so outstanding. It's going to end up being about 221 or 222 for the Republicans and 214 or 213 for the Democrats. Very tight. And look, Donald Trump has now picked 2 members of the House to be in the cabinet. I mean, those are going to be special elections. Oh, my goodness. Now, what Donald Trump is signing up for, I'm just telling you this because I know this. What Donald Trump is signing up for is he's signing up for a special election in February in upstate New York in the Adirondacks. So put on your parka, Mr. President. You're going up to the Adirondacks, which is where Lee Stefanik is. Number 7, we got FEMA finally fessing up, and boy, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about that. Number 8, the majority leader race. There will be a vote tonight. All 3, Thune, Cornyn, and who else have we got there? Rick Scott will make their case. By the way, Marsha Blackburn has not committed one way or the other. Bill Hagerty from Tennessee has said he's going to back Scott. MAGA World is sort of backing Scott. And it was a false claim that Marsha Blackburn was going to back Thune. She's still open on that, and we'll find that out. And finally today, Judge Merchan is going to make a decision as to whether or not to dismiss the charges, the phony felony charges against Donald Trump. We'll see how that plays out. Okay, that's it for the morning rundown. We kind of went long on it, but it was really something. I want to say we're sponsored by our friends at the Glock Store, glockstore.com. This is the time of year we're called upon to be thankful. I just want to thank our sponsors. And, we're commercial radio. Means that we're not supported by tax dollars. So I get to say what I want to, but I can only say that if we've got sponsors. And we have some terrific sponsors, particularly the Glock Store. Now, you can, if you're not here in Nashville, their retail stores here, you can buy Glock accessories from them. Go to glockstore.com, anywhere in the country. Lenny moved the entire Glock Store operation from San Diego, California, to Nashville in 2020. We're glad he did. I've known him since he opened his doors there, and they like what I talk about, and they support me, and they've been a terrific sponsor ever since. So if you want to keep me on the air, you need to keep supporting the Glock Store. Go to glockstore.com, glockstore.com. And thank you, Lenny McGill, for continuing to sponsor the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. We'll have more when we get back. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of The Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. Hey, we've got a lot to go through today, and we'll be talking at the bottom of the hour with former Special Envoy to Haiti, Dan Foote. Haiti's blowing up, and Dan Foote can tell you all the reasons why. So we'll have Dan Foote here at the bottom of the hour. And then at 50 after the hour, Brianna Morello, who is a terrific reporter. You've seen her on the Ladder with Crowder. I've been on her show a lot talking about the Covenant Killer Manifesto and our release of the documents that we had obtained legally in that. She's been following the Stephen Baker case. And apparently, as we speak right now, he is in a courtroom in Washington, D.C., pleading guilty to, I will say, trumped up misdemeanor charges related to J6. And so we'll ask her about that and talk about why he's chosen to plead guilty. We got a clip of him talking about it last night on another program. But right now, I want to talk to you about the attitude of the Trump administration. I love it. It's really kind of in your face. And Tom Homan, the guy who's going to be the border czar, really represents. I mean, if you look at Tom, you kind of think, this is not a guy I want to mess with, right? He's a classic law enforcement guy. I know the kind of guy. He's from upstate New York. He's kind of a matter-of-fact, straight, blunt guy. He's been in law enforcement for his whole life as a police officer, border patrol guy, and he's not messing around. You just can't help but love the guy. He's going to deport him. Here he was. We got these clips of him talking. This was before the appointment when some lefty, I forget this lefty from Washington, was trying to pin him down in some testimony. And he just took it to her. Let's go. Clip 7. Tom Homan.
Please respect the chair's authority.
I respect the chair's authority, but the chair...
Mr. Homan!
You work for me.
Me.
I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
The witness will suspend.
He's not going to put up with any mess. I forget her name, Jamala Nayapril or whatever. She's a communist from Washington State, and she doesn't like being contradicted. And he's not messing around. He's like fantastic. Another guy's not messing around. We're talking about attitude here. And by the way, if you want to call in, our number 615-649-8477. 615-649-8477. Just tell our producer, Patrick, where you're from and what you want to talk about. Okay, so let's go to attitude. Scott Jennings, CNN. You know you're winning when you're laughing, right? When you watch Tom Homan at any of the interviews, don't you just start smiling automatically? Yes, you do. Yeah, look, he's not a guy... You don't want to be driving a little bit past the speed limit and have a guy like Tom Homan stop you, right? Because you know it's not going to end up well for you. Likewise, if you're on a cable television, if you're on CNN and you're having a conversation with Scott Jennings, it's not going to go well for you. Here we go. Clip 4, Scott Jennings, just taking it to CNN.
These people have become pathetic. I mean, they stopped being comedians and they started becoming political activists. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel out here crying. I mean, it's pathetic. And so my question is, if you're going to have a late night comedy show, at some point people might expect it to be funny and not just a constant political screed against one party. And I don't know that this activism for 4 more years is sustainable if you're going to market something as comedy, but the actual product is nothing more than sort of lowbrow political activism. Just one other point. During the Biden years, there was nobody that provided more comedy fodder possible than Joe Biden. I mean, he was a walking...
He was made fun of.
He was absolutely not.
He was left
alone. Harris was left alone.
No.
They got nothing. They didn't get 10% of what they deserved.
He's too old. He doesn't understand. I mean, he seemed like Gerald Ford, the way they portrayed Gerald Ford.
SNL never got Biden right until Carvey came in the last couple of weeks.
They never got the White House.
I love Scott Jennings. He's from Kentucky, and up in Louisville. And we ought to have him on the show. Maybe CNN has some exclusive with him, but I think the only reason CNN's ratings haven't dipped further is because people on our side like to listen to Scott Jennings. You just mix it up with him. It's really good. We're talking about attitude, right? And the attitude is we're done with the beta males. We're done with all this lefty ridiculousness. And we're just going to go back to common sense. Oh, I love it. I love it. We're just going back to common sense. Stephen K. Bannon was talking about this and what the attitude is in the Trump administration. Here we go. Clip 14. Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, let's hit reset for a moment. This audience, being the tip of the spear, the kind of vanguard or the cadres in leadership in the grassroots movement, were, I think, the major element or one of the most major elements in the great victory on the 5th, supporting President Trump with this massive get-out-the-vote effort, coupled with others. Then others signed up and did the Election Integrity Project. This is why we had so many poll watchers and poll workers and judges. I heard from, I think it was Delois in Virginia, the first time 100% they had 100% capacity in election judges, election officials, poll workers, poll watchers, all of it. Normally it's 20%, 100%. You saw this throughout the country. So you guys have earned your seat at the table. I would love to be able to sit here and talk about fun things and all that, but we can't. We got more work to do. Twofold. When you look at the institutions of institutional power, what President Trump is trying to do, he's trying to institutionalize MAGA. He's trying to institutionalize his political revolution. How is he doing it? He's going to embed it into the 3 major branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. We have to, and that's tomorrow, put these senators on notice that it's not acceptable to have a secret ballot that you demand as their constituents to understand who they voted for and why. They have to understand that President Trump needs at least the ability to have some recess appointments. May not need them, just once in his back pocket, as he should. He's trying to mitigate his risk. And that the new leader of the Senate is aligned on other policies he's going to have coming through, because there's massive issues about the debt ceiling and about the budget and the deficits and the deportations. All of that has to be worked through, and he needs a Senate leader that he can trust and work with.
Yeah, these are all good points. I will say one thing that is very obvious, and I was delighted to see that the new chief of staff, Susie Wiles, who, by the way, who I like a lot. I think she's fantastic. She's behind the scenes, and she's the late great Pat Summerall's daughter. How could you not like her, right? Those of you who of a certain age remember Pat Summerall was the premier broadcaster of NFL, along with John Madden. Great guy. And, the common sense that he had, you see that in Susie Wiles. But she said something very important. And this is all about why things are different in the world today as opposed to, when the Senate began back in 1789. And that is, everything's moving very fast, 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 fast. And what Susie said is this. We've got 2 years to get this done. Not 4 years, 2 years, because there's a midterm election, et cetera. And who knows how that's going to break out. Typically what happens, we got some breaking news here. New York judge delays decision on whether to dismiss Trump guilty verdict. We'll have more about that when we get back, when we talk to Dan Foote. I'll have more on that, but that just broke on Truth Social. That's interesting, because he was supposed to make that decision today. Probably not a bad idea to delay it until after the inauguration. Okay, so anyways, 2 years. What does that mean? Let me just get to this very quickly. What it means is, recess appointments matter, because if you can put your guy in on day one, you can get these things moving. And that's what has to happen. The deportations have to be beginning right now. Now, I don't think that the border czar position requires Senate approval. It might. But what you want to do is, like that afternoon of inauguration, have your full team ready to go, be it acting or not. If the Senate is in recess that afternoon, boom, they can all be appointed to acting. And then, if the Senate confirms them, great. There we go. So we'll be right back with Dan Foote, former special envoy to Haiti. Haiti's blowing up, and he's got some insight. We're going to send him our communication, get him on shortly. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy, back after this.
My fellow Americans, I have to tell you about my good friends at D.T. McCall and Sons. They have furniture and appliances and a lot more. They've been family owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years, and they're not going to rip you off. No hidden charges, no delivery charges, no charges for all of the crazy things. These are sick people at the lumber yards. These are very sick people. They charge you for cords and hoses and haul off. They charge you for all of these things. They call them hidden charges. It's the type of surprise that you don't want to see. It's like an October surprise, but it's worse. D.T. McCall and Sons, they're not going to do that. They're great people. They're going to give you a great deal. With locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin, D.T. McCall and Sons will give you the deal of your life. Check them out today or go to dtmccalls.com. Impersonator not endorsed by Donald Trump.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. We welcome on our Zoom Newsmaker line right now our very good friend, former ambassador to Zambia, former special envoy to Haiti, Dan Foote. Welcome, Dan.
Nice to see you, Michael Patrick. How are you?
Good to see you. How's everything in Buffalo, New York these days?
Great. We're going down into the 20s tonight for the first.
Cold, cold, cold. Well, listen, everything that you've said about what would happen in Haiti has happened. It's further descending into a hellish landscape. When they appointed a new prime minister 6 months ago, or less than 6 months ago, you said it's not going to last. Well, guess what? Bring us up to speed on what's happening there. They got a new prime minister. They're shooting at airplanes. No airplanes are, no airlines are flying in there, right?
So Spirit Airlines took a couple of bullets yesterday. One flight attendant got hurt, and there were a number of bullet marks on the plane when it landed in Santiago in the Dominican Republic. Gary Conille was named prime minister by this commission of 9 Haitians that was anointed by the U.S. and CARICOM 6 months ago. And they chose Gary Conille, a former prime minister under Michel Martelly, who kind of started this slide to the bottom with Haiti in 2010 when he was elected. Gary is lazy and was a UN official for many years, and those two kind of go together. Not all UN officials, of course, but did nothing, knows nothing about security. Nothing happened except for a bunch of corruption charges against the 9-member commission. They fired him, named another guy. He's a solid businessman in Haiti. He used to be president of the American Haitian Chamber of Commerce. I know the guy. He's going to have the same results that Gary Conille had. And the gangs are in charge and will be until everybody takes a step back and tries a new approach.
You've been talking about a new approach for a long time. It's a weird time, isn't it? We've got, 68 days, I think, until the new president is sworn in. During this transition period, how does the State Department run? What do they do? What can they do?
Normally, the State Department would just keep chugging along under the policies of the current president. Unfortunately, as we all know, the Biden administration has had poor, if any, policies in most places. They've been paralyzed by indecision, haven't made strong American leadership calls around the globe. So at this point, I think the State Department is just going to limp towards the finish line under Tony Blinken with his pipe dream that he's going to fix things in the Middle East and in Sudan and Haiti. He's not going to fix anything, and that's been clear for a long time. So it's sort of like, hopefully, as the Trump administration gets their nominees together. I read today that it looks like Marco Rubio may be the pick for Secretary of State. I know him. I met him in Haiti, of all places, and he is a guy who knows what's going on in the world and is understands policy. So I would be happy with a move like that, I think.
So that's interesting. I didn't know that you knew Marco Rubio. I know that you knew Rick Grinnell, who, and again, this appointment, Trump hasn't made the announcement yet.
Correct.
But it we'll know probably later today if he makes a formal announcement. I thought that your buddy Rick Grinnell was the front runner on it.
So did I, and he may still be. I mean,
Yeah.
how the press gets out in front of its skis sometimes. So he may still be, but I was surprised to see that this morning because I would have thought there'd be a little more deliberation and talking between the two. So we'll see. That could be non-news or fake news.
So let's talk about when you met Marco Rubio in Haiti. When did that happen? What were the circumstances?
I think it was 2011, so I don't believe it was right after the earthquake. I believe it was about a year after the earthquake in 2011. And he and his wife came down on a fact-finding trip for a day, and we spent the day with them, the ambassador and I was the deputy at the embassy, and he was very highly engaged. He had a good sense for Haiti's history and politics. As a Cuban guy whose parents immigrated, my guess is he has a good sense of the Caribbean. He's from South Florida, so he impressed me with his knowledge. And when he served on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the same thing. He knew what he was talking about, as opposed to some of his colleagues.
So then your sense is that, and when I looked at Marco Rubio as a possible Secretary of State, I had the same reaction. This guy is very familiar with the Cuban community, and he is Cuban American, right, down in Florida. Very familiar with all the issues in the Caribbean, probably more than anybody else, really.
I would think so, yeah.
Right.
I mean, him and Diaz-Balart, who has since retired, were the two who really knew what was going on in that part of the world. And same with Venezuela, Central America, Latin America. He also understands the Middle East and Ukraine and Russia, too. So as does Rick. I mean, I don't want to say one's better than the other. I think they'd both be fine picks, to tell you the
Either
truth.
one would be a good pick. That's good news to hear you say that, Dan, because you know what's going on. Now, Dan, how bad can Haiti spiral out of control over the next 68 days? Is it going to get worse?
It ain't going to get better. I don't. I don't know.
It ain't going to get better.
Get worse. It depends on the motivation of the gangs, and you still got the Kenyan yo-yos down there for several hundred saying, "Oh, we're just getting our act together. We're going to bang these gangs hard and kick them in the knee." They haven't done anything. They're not going to do anything. So unless somebody stirs the hornet's nest of the gangs, it's probably not going to get better. But as soon as somebody goes in and starts messing around the gangs, I anticipate it'll get worse, because now we're entering real anarchy and real chaos. Regular Haitian on the street is like, we got no government. This is all fake and false, and no one's ruling the country. And that's when things can get really spun out.
So you referenced the Kenyan yo-yos. That this was the brilliant idea of Meg Whitman, the ambassador to Kenya, and Blanken thought it would be a good idea. They sent in, I don't know, a couple thousand? How many Kenyans?
Well, at this point, I'm only aware of 400 Kenyans. I think there's a couple hundred from Burkina Faso. You got some Costa Ricans in there. President Bukele in El Salvador is thinking about sending some people. If he sends some people, he may send enough, police ass to do something. But with a smattering of 1,000, 2,000 guys, not gonna happen. Sitting at the airport, hunkered down, hoping nobody attacks.
Okay, so it's 1 p.m. January 20th, 2025. And whoever the Secretary of State is, Marco Rubio, Rick Grinnell, I guess right now it's looking more like Marco Rubio. We give them your phone number. Your phone rings. Dan, can you help us fix Haiti? What do you do?
I say yes. I can help you fix Haiti, but I've been retired. I've been not working. I've been doing fun stuff for the past couple of years. I would love to come in and help Haiti. The only problem is, as you know, Michael Patrick, Dan Foote is a renegade guy and what will not be able to pledge his loyalty to any one person. I have pledged my loyalty to the Constitution 1,000,000 times and will continue to do it, but I can't pledge my loyalty to a person. That's just not how I roll.
We got it. But let's just say, they say, well, Dan, we know that, but you're the guy. Okay, so so you're on a plane to Haiti like that afternoon. What do you do?
Well, first of all, I say, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it my way and the Haitians' way, because that's the only way that's going to work. And then I go to Haiti, and we look at the best way to create a national dialogue or a constituent assembly, whatever you want to call it. They've done this in the past where they bring in community leaders from around the country. You're going to wind up with 1,000+ people that represent their communities, and they're going to come in for a week, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and figure out the future for Haiti. Because if we can get the Haitians bought into a way forward and go the political way they want, there's a chance for success. We've always anointed the wrong leaders, and as soon as we do, they know they don't have to answer to the Haitian people, so they get corrupt, they start stealing, and they're crappy leaders. It's they're in charge, and the people are screwed when we do it our way. If we let the Haitians come together and lead us on the path towards a political solution and elections that might actually work at some point in time, that's the way to go.
So the gangs are running it right now. How many gangs are there? How many gang members are there, would you say?
That's a great question. If I had to interpolate all the numbers I've seen, I'd probably say you got 20,000 to 30,000 gangbangers running around Haiti, and the number of gangs is probably 3 digits if you count all of them. But there's a lot of alliances.
Are they part of this solution of the 1,000 people? Did they have a representative at the table?
That's up to the Haitians.
Got it.
That's not up to Dan Foote. Haiti needs to decide, not the U.S., not the UN, what to do with these gangbangers. Are they going to kill them all? Do they want to talk about amnesty for some? Is there going to be some sort of demobilization program? These are all the things we have to talk and think about that the U.S. has never talked about, and it depends what the Haitians
That's a great answer, Dan, and obviously it's not one that I thought of, but obviously you've got the experience. Okay, so here's what I'm going to suggest to whoever the Secretary of State is. Let's hope on that afternoon the Senate is not in session, and then that we can put you in as acting ambassador to Haiti and get on a plane and implement your plan. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
All right, Dan Foote, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Michael.
Take care. We'll be back with Brianna Morella after this.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back, and we welcome to our Newsmaker line right now our very good friend, Brianna Morello. Welcome, Brianna. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Michael. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
So I was very surprised yesterday when the presiding judge over Stephen Baker, our friend Stephen Baker, his trial on J6 charges. I was very surprised when that judge said that he would not delay the trial, and the trial began this morning. There were reports late last night that Steve Baker was going to plead guilty to 4 misdemeanor charges. Apparently, he went into court just about 45 minutes ago. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, so far we're still waiting to hear back from his attorneys. They have not been able to kind of reach out and follow through with what's going on. From, when I spoke with Steve about an hour before everything kind of started for him, he seems optimistic. He's taking these pleas. It's not a plea agreement. I think people need to know that. He is one of the many J6 defendants who is backed into a wall, and it's because of the simple fact that you're in front of a liberal jury, and it's a very liberal jury. In fact, when you look at the voting numbers, it's just not even, you don't stand a chance. And although Steve that day was a journalist, and it's well documented he was a journalist, he did local news interviews right after the Capitol event that took place. He did all these interviews. He used his footage. He was well documented on all of this. They still went after him and filed these charges too. And that's the most egregious part in all of this. Now the Judge Christopher Cooper is his name. This individual, I think it's very clear, he's well aware that Steve is going to probably receive a pardon from President Trump. There's a lot of people who are in his corner, obviously Glenn Beck. And we heard Charlie Kirk say that he'd make this a priority to make sure Steve is given a pardon. I think Judge Cooper hears things like that, and he wants this to go on. He wants this persecution to go on, and so that's why he floored it and is refusing to delay. So it's heartbreaking. We still have not heard from them as of yet, but from my understanding, from people I've spoken to, Steve is going to let the court know his take on all of this, and that this is a political persecution. So we'll hear from him soon if the judge decides to hold him because he's speaking out on his own behalf. We'll see if they hold him. If not, he will likely be released and have a sentencing date coming soon.
So it's uncertain. The plan last night, he was interviewed by another outlet and basically said he intended to plead guilty to all 4 misdemeanors, although he was going to make a statement explaining why, in essence, I guess saying, I'm not going to get a fair trial, and then reserve his right to appeal. Do I have that right as to what he was intending to do this morning?
Correct. That was the plan as of this morning as well. I was told by not Steve directly, but by somebody else that Judge Cooper likely will take well to whatever Steve is going to say, and he might actually put him and hold him in contempt. So from what I've been told, I did not verify this with Steve, but this is someone close to Steve, that Steve is mentally prepared for whatever happens today in court.
So what you're saying, and we don't know, this is unveiling now. It may have already unveiled, but the plan was court convened at 10 a.m. Eastern, which was now, 53 minutes ago. Steve's plan was to plead guilty, but basically say in his statement, I'm not guilty, but the deck is stacked against me. And what you're telling me is you're hearing that perhaps the judge didn't take kindly to that and may decide to literally jail him today on contempt of court. Is that? Do I have that right?
That might be what happened.
Might be.
We're not 100% sure. Anyone who's in the courtroom right now hasn't been able to get access to their phones, so I haven't been able to communicate with them. But somebody close to Steve said that Steve did tell them that he was going to make his concerns known in court, which might not sit well with Judge Cooper, and there's a possible chance that he might be held in contempt for stating his opinion. What he's doing, too, for everyone to understand, it's the Alford plea. So you're not directly admitting guilt, like you said, Michael. You're just saying that the odds are stacked against you, and that you're kind of admitting to not having a fair trial. And that's what we know every J6er has not had it.
So this would then be an Alford plea where you say, look, when you take an Alford plea, I think you say, I'm going to plead guilty, but the reason I'm going to plead guilty is there's enough evidence out there to convict me, even though I'm not guilty. I just don't have the resources and the time and the evidence in this venue to make my case. Is that basically what the plan was?
He said that it was going to be an Alford plea. So, yeah, if that's what an Alford plea is, I'd say that that's probably where he was going with it. He has multiple attorneys. He spoke with all of them, and they thought that this was the best route for him. Keep in mind, and for everyone to understand, because it's not Steve copying and just kind of, just letting the DOJ do whatever they want. Steve was one of many journalists who were there filming that day in the Capitol, but he's one of a very small group who's being prosecuted, and it's because of the work that he's done. And I want to keep driving that point home for folks because it's important. I mean, there were people who used terms like insurrection when reporting on what happened inside the Capitol, and they were right next to Steve, and they were never prosecuted. And they also haven't spoken out on Steve's behalf, according to Steve. So they've been very quiet when all this is going on. So for those who kind of comply with the narrative and call themselves journalists, they have gained immunity in all of this. But Steve obviously hasn't. He also exposed the DOJ for committing perjury during the Oath Keepers trial. And then soon after that, after he went public with that, he was indicted.
Yeah, and this is selective vindictive prosecution, is what it seems like to me. And I know, look, Steve was here to back me up when I faced contempt of court charges. I mean, when you're in that court and the judge is looking at you and you've got an argument to make and you feel you can't make that argument, that is not exactly my idea of American justice. And Steve was there for me on my day in court. Obviously, the judge backed off in my circumstance, and I'm there for him. I'm backing him, as I think all journalists are, Brianna.
Yeah. No, we should be. Sadly, those in the corporate media have not had his back, and that's the part that I think is really heartbreaking because Steve sat in courtrooms next to all of these guys while other people were being prosecuted and reported on it. And Steve was one of the many who sat there, listened, and then instead of going with the narrative that was spun by the DOJ, he actually did the digging. He went back and he looked at camera footage, and he did the digging himself. And because of that, he is now being punished.
Exactly. Brianna Marella, you've done such great work on all of this. How do people reach you?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Just BriannaMorello.com, BREANNA, and then Morello, MORELLO.com.
And just so everybody knows, Brianna is a rising star of the new media on the right. So thank you, Brianna, for joining us today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. We'll be back with more after the break. EJ Haas joins us.